Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, however, whenever, wherever you may be listening. Welcome to a very, very special episode of the We Are Family Pittsburgh Sports Podcast. It's special because, number one, we have a very special guest who I'm going to introduce here in a second. And number two, it's episode 42. Jackie Robinson. I wore 42 playing baseball in honor of Jack. I like 40. It's a great number. You can't go wrong with it. So here today, we're talking some Pitt Athletics, a lot of Pitt Athletics, with one of four full-time broadcast employees at the University of Pittsburgh, a University of Pittsburgh alum, Jason Earle. If you go to the Pitt football games, Jason, you'll see him on the big screen. He's the Joe Klimchak of Pitt football. And he also broadcasts pretty much every other sport other than football, including basketball, which I know we're going to get into some Pitt basketball today. I'm Pirate Peyton, joined as always by Nathan Shivens and Jake Bell with his James Conner jersey. You got to love that.
Gotta love it.
So Jason, you know, for the audience who doesn't know much about you, would you tell everyone what your job is at Pitt and some of the experiences you've had?
Well, first off, you're hyping me up too much because I think I don't know how many years Joe Klimchak's been doing it, but I gotta get a lot more under my belt before I can be called the Joe Klimchak of Pitt. But but I appreciate it. So no, you said it. I am my official title is Director of Broadcast and Video Production within Pitt Athletics and Pitt Studios, and so I get to work with a great team. Like you said, we have three other outstanding producers, directors, Sarah Johnson, Reagan Check, Tristan Russell. They do a fantastic job, and the four of us just oversee our broadcast at Pitt. So anything that's on ACC Network Extra, for Pitt Athletics across all their different sports, we make sure that those get crewed from every position in the control room to the talent on air as well, and the camera operators, everything like that. It's kind of just our job to make sure that those go off successfully, and then that's a lot of the back end work, and then the game day work as well. So being the ones to actually produce the shows and direct, and for me do some play by play as well. So it's awesome, getting to work at the school that I went to, the school I grew up a fan of, and now get to play a big part in getting their broadcast done. And you went,
because you grew up in the area, where'd you go to high school?
I went to North Allegheny.
Okay, that's right. Mm-hmm. So big school.
Yeah.
A big university. So you jumped right in, and that's why he's where he is today, because you took all the opportunities you could get in college.
Yeah, which you guys are doing as well, which is fantastic. I love to see it, and I always tell everybody that's in school and as a student, especially looking to get into sports media and sports broadcasting, it's so important that you take advantage of the opportunities while you're in school. Because a lot of the time when you graduate, you don't have them. Like something like this is really neat to have for you guys to have this set up. And for me, that opportunity was the stuff I was doing at ACC Network, interning there, but for my student radio station at Pitt as well, WPTS Radio, that's kind of where I mainly saw that opportunity and thought, this is something I'm not going to have when I finish school. I better take advantage of this and start to get on-air reps. And I just remember a couple moments flying down to Miami and calling a Pitt Miami football game with one of my good friends at the time, and going down to Charlotte for an ACC basketball tournament. And we're just like, how are we here right now? we're like 20 years old in college. We're like going down, getting our flights covered. Every meal is covered. We shouldn't be here. We're not qualified for this. But it's those types of opportunities that you get when you're in school. And I definitely wanted to take advantage of them, and like to think that it helped me kind of get to where I am now.
Now, you kind of always knew that like broadcasting was kind of your calling. I mean, how did that come about for you?
I think it's a bit cliche, but I was one of those kids who was in the driveway or in the backyard, like playing a make-believe game as a kid, right? And so I was, I created like my own basketball leagues when I was a child, and I would announce the games as I'm dribbling and I'm shooting and everything. And then I think when I got into high school, I was like, I had a lot of fun doing that as a kid. Maybe let me just try this and see if I could actually announce real games instead of make-believe ones. And so in high school back at NA, I got involved with TV there, and we didn't really do any play-by-play game broadcasts there. My work was mainly just kind of, morning announcements, sports report type thing. So it wasn't really until Pitt where I thought about doing play-by-play. Like I said, got involved with the radio station and right away realized that it was just kind of show up and they need people to call football games. And they did every men's and women's home basketball game as well. So that's a lot of games between football, men's and women's hoops. Occasionally did some baseball and softball too for radio. So that's kind of where I started getting into play-by-play. And, I still listen back to some of those early tapes that I have, and I just cringe. I'm like, geez, man, that did not sound good. But that was, 9 years ago at this point. So, but yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. A lot has changed, yeah. But no, I've been fortunate to be able to do it at Pitt for, about 9 years now, going back to when I started as a student.
Well, transitioning into Pitt football, and we'll get into Pitt basketball. And these guys here, I know Pitt football and basketball, but these guys here know a lot, so they're going to have a lot of questions for
love
you.
It.
But I want to talk about how you got, because this is going to be your second or third year of being the, I'm not going to say the Joe Klimchak of
the on-field,
the in-game announcer. That's what it's called. And I want to talk about how that opportunity came about for you, because that is such an awesome opportunity. It gets your face and your name out there to the entire Pittsburgh region in a way.
Yeah, no, thank you. This will be my second season doing it, and it was a lot of fun last year. And I had never really done anything like that. I kind of was mainly play-by-play up until that, and it was neat too, because one thing that I haven't mentioned so far, but at Pitt, since our production facility is away from obviously where the football stadium is, we don't really actually do much for football, and I always kind of wish that maybe I did, because we all know football's the most important sport in America at the pro level, at the college level. And so there was almost a part of me that was like, if I want to be taken seriously in this business and I want to take the next step, I have to be doing something football related. So I was really glad that last year that opportunity came about. Pitt's director of marketing at the time, Aaron Fordyce, was the one who kind of thought I might be a good fit for the role. And he did a great job in helping me prepare for that, and something I've never done before. He's a really detail-oriented guy that really set me up well for that, and it was just cool. I think some of the most fun memories I have from that first year is, obviously having kids come down, do the Junior Panther Shuffle and stuff like that is fun, and having fans try and throw the football from the 50-yard line and hit targets and everything like that was cool. But I'll tell you what, some of the neatest moments were seeing Sweet Caroline from the field, actually, and just looking up and seeing the whole stadium do it from down below was a perspective I had never had before. And so watching that, and especially the way we started the season last year, going 7-0 to start off the year, part of me was like, this is my first year doing this, and I'm getting treated to a 7-0 start, and we're not going to talk about what happened after that.
Yeah, let's talk down that road.
But no, it was just, it was awesome. And I was down there for the West Virginia game. Obviously, that was a really fun one, too, and an exciting game. And I don't remember what exactly the deficit was, but it was
we were
down 10 with 4 minutes left, something like that. And then we just flipped the game on its head, came back and won. So a lot of great memories from that first year, and I'm looking forward to it. We're getting really close to that game against Duquesne at the end of the month here.
And 2 weeks from this upcoming Friday. Now, you talked about the different things that you do and some memories that you've had. Is there one moment or one funny or one just memorable moment from your first season?
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of good ones. Like I said, I think maybe just in terms of the coolest was probably Sweet Caroline in the West Virginia game specifically, just because it was a full house, right? I mean, that was a sold-out crowd for that game. So to see the entire stadium singing Sweet Caroline, maybe some West Virginia fans were refraining, but it was still very cool to see that. And I don't know. I think those were those were some of the coolest ones. And then actually another one that comes to mind is we had the basketball team down on the field for a game to surprise former player Sam Clancy and tell him that his jersey was being retired. So this was an event where there were a lot of meetings about it to make sure that the surprise stayed intact and that it was executed to perfection. But that was a really fun one too. Growing up a Pitt basketball fan, to be down there with the current team, and not that I was a big part of the surprise really, but to pass the mic off to Coach Capel, and then he says something like, we've got a great team and a great season coming up. And by the way, in January in our game against Clemson, Sam Clancy's jersey will be retired.
Did you know that was happening?
I did know it was happening, yeah.
Okay. You had to keep quiet there a little bit. Keep going to the Rats.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, there was, I think he was genuinely surprised. You never know with this stuff. Sometimes they're lying and they say they didn't know, but I think he genuinely did not know. And he burst out into tears, and seeing the whole team kind of, gather around him and congratulate him was a good one. So a lot of great memories to choose from, but those are the first couple that come to mind.
I went to 1 or 2 Pitt basketball, and I was at the game they retired his jersey. What a humble and gracious guy, Sam Clancy. I mean, no one I think deserves it more than that guy there. A Pittsburgh kid from Brashear. Shout out Brashear.
He's awesome. Yeah. And we see him around the athletic department a lot. He still has an active role there. And it's funny, we have a summer softball league in Pitt Athletics, and he doesn't play, but he'll come and he'll show up on the bench and just heckle everybody on the field. He'll support too. He's always pulling for the athletics teams, but he'll let you know if you miss a fly ball or if you make an overthrow over to first, he'll let you know about it. So he is a character, and he is certainly deserving of getting that jersey in the rafters. Was really cool.
All right. I'm opening it up to questions now.
Let's do it. hey, by the way, did you guys see Mike Tomlin's press conference?
Nobody. We were talking. Nobody asked any questions.
That was the strangest thing. I just thought of that when you said you opened it up to questions.
And then we're gonna be quiet. No questions. I have no questions.
Jason, you can get out of here.
Yeah.
And I think Mason. I remember I didn't see that with Tomlin, but I remember I saw Mason's press conference. They asked him like 1 or 2 questions, and he was like so happy. He's like, "Thanks, guys, I can leave now."
Yeah, that's a dream night for them.
You never see that. That was so shocking. And the Steelers too. You'd figure like maybe like a team that's not as well known or something, lower recognition, might only have 1 or 2 people come. And then maybe they just didn't have any questions for somebody. But that was just shocking.
It was. It really was. I couldn't believe it. But anyway, that's what popped into my head when you open it up for questions.
Yes, so I have a question just about the production side, because I think all of us growing up, we see the play-by-play, we see the color guy, and we acknowledge that there's camera people and everything, and there's people in the back actually producing it. But just go into, I guess, it's a little different for every sport, but just generally what goes into producing a live sports broadcast.
Oh, so much. And I'm glad that you bring that up, because that's one thing that me and my staff, we tell up-and-coming students all the time, is that if you want to be an announcer, a play-by-play, or a color, or a reporter, absolutely go for it. But so many people come to us and they don't even know how many other positions exist in the room. So there is so much that goes into it. And we've actually had a handful that come to us thinking they want to be announcers, and then they are opened up to everything else that exists in the control room, and suddenly their goal changes a little bit, or at least they become open to more things that are in the production room. And so it's a full process, and we're about to get started with it coming up here. This Thursday, women's soccer has their first game against Xavier, and from that point, we're pretty much off and running.
Oh wow, that's early.
Yeah,
I thought it was
early.
Early September, when around Pitt football starts for soccer. Wow,
soccer starts early, especially the women. I think start a week earlier than the men, but yeah, and so just kind of if you're producing a game, your work really starts a week out. You want to be reaching out to your announcers so you can collaborate with them, get on the same page, and then you're looking into preliminary storylines, going on the team's websites and seeing what players are returning, what they did last year, how the team was last year, how long has the coach been there. You're looking into all that stuff. And then from there, you're preparing content. Do you want graphics on a certain player? Do you want highlight packages to recap a game or on a specific player? What do you want to do in your open? What do you want to do during halftime to provide coverage for halftime? So, it's a lot of stuff that you have to prepare for. And a lot of it you can't prepare. It is live sports, right? So you're kind of going with the flow of the game. But in that regard, you want to be ready for any situation that presents itself. And so, I think one that comes to mind in terms of just being ready for anything is Pitt women's basketball played SMU last season, and they were down 46 to 14, 32-point deficit. They end up coming back and winning the game. So tied the largest overcome deficit in NCAA D1 women's basketball history. And it was just a good example of when you're producing a broadcast, you never want to check out, right? And you never want to assume the game is over, because at that point, I'm sure I wasn't actually in the control room that day, but I'm sure everyone was kind of throwing in the towel saying, all right, all SMU stuff the rest of the game, just show SMU highlights and graphics and everything. And then before you know it, Pitt is starting to mount a comeback, and they ended up winning the game by double digits. That's the part that people forget, is not only did they come back from 32 down, they came back and they won by double digits, which is just nuts.
It was one of the strangest games I've ever seen, because SMU literally scored like 4 points for like 15 minutes.
Right.
Like it was like almost all of the half. They scored just like, I think they almost scored in single digits. I think the whole half or something like that.
I think so. I think they might have had 11. I want to say it finished with 57. It maybe had 46 at the half.
They were
like that,
probably in the control room. They're updating. They got the on the side of the graphic, Pitt. 21-0
Oh yeah.
25. They're just counting it up every time. 25-2. As it goes.
And that's exactly it. Is when you're in the control room during a game like that, you're doing everything you possibly can to cover this moment as well as you can, because this is something that's going to be replayed potentially on SportsCenter, social media, over and over. This is history. So in live TV, you think, this is live television. This is my one opportunity to get this right. And so you really have to lock in and make sure you're providing the proper coverage for that, because if you don't, you can sometimes get comments or feedback after the game that says, this was history right here, and the TV broadcast didn't cover it at all.
Right.
And I kind of thought about that during the preseason game with the 70-yard field goal, something like that. You just never know when you're going to get a historic moment happen out of nowhere. And so when something like that happens, you want to make sure you're giving it the proper juice and the proper excitement and coverage, because people are always going to look back, and everyone's eager to be critical, right? Especially of sports television, and they got something to say, they go on Twitter and say it. So it's an exhilarating business for sure.
Rarely are you going to get praise, but you will always get criticism if you mess up.
Yeah.
And you know what? Mess ups happen, but you have to accept the fact. And I think this is a big part of and you can elaborate on this, but accepting the fact that, it doesn't come with, cookies and ice cream all the time, like
or blueberry muffins.
You have to accept that it's a tough world. It's a mean, cruel world, and you have to take that in stride.
Well, sometimes I think of it like a sports control room production team is almost like referees, right? Nobody's going to talk about the ones that do a great job, right? You almost don't want to be noticed.
You don't want to be talked about.
Yes. If you're being talked about, if you're being noticed, that probably means you had errors all over the broadcast and people are at home sitting there thinking, what's going on with this show? But yeah, like how many times do we get to the end of a broadcast that we're watching at home and say, wow, that broadcast was really great. Normally we're saying like that was a great game, but we're not typically saying, oh, the control room team did a great job. If you do say that,
it's because like, oh, it's like the announcers, oh, that, Chris Fowler, that was a great call on that play or something. It's never the production team itself, you know. But yeah, I just want to talk about that a little more too, because I think like us, like I'll speak for myself. When you see that, watching a game, before I got to Point Park and everything, and I was actually behind the scenes producing stuff, you're eager to criticize. Like, oh my gosh, what are they doing there?
Yeah.
They're gaffes galore, basically.
Right.
But now, we've had some experience producing games and being on air for games for Point Park. You have a different perspective and you understand kind of everything that goes into that. And obviously we're on a smaller scale, but it's still the same idea. I mean, it's even more so for Pitt or even for national broadcasts. There's so many more cameras. There's so many more different things you have to address during the broadcast.
Yeah, 100%. And that's just it. We always say once you start working in sports TV, you can never watch it the same way because you're always going to be, anytime something good is done or something bad is done, you're always going to be thinking about what was happening in the control room that led up to that. And you're kind of theorizing about how that moment came to be and things like that. And honestly, now that I've worked in sports production for a while now, I'll watch games and I feel like my attention to the actual game itself and formations and strategies and stuff like that has taken a back seat to actually watching the production now and noticing things about the production. Sometimes people ask me, "Oh, what do you think of the game?" And I mean, to be honest, I was paying more attention to the broadcast.
They had a great transition when they put that graphic up. Actually, to me, a little bit too, like to a certain extent, also, like you see, like, oh, they did a nice job, like well timed on that graphic.
Yeah.
When something big happens, like, oh, this is the first time it's had, like,
and now we know we notice that because we understand it.
Right.
100%. But it is, you definitely start to pick up on stuff like that. You watch enough of it and you work in the business, that stuff becomes clear.
Pitt Studios, by the way, you guys have seen it more recently probably than I have. Jake met a few years. It's been a while. I mean, that was some years ago now, but Jason took me on. It was nice enough to take me on a tour of Pitt Studios. Such a beautiful facility. I'm sure they've added some more things since I've been there, but just a great. And it's inside the Peterson. All the Pitt Athletics. I don't know if you want to talk about that. All the Pitt Athletics offices in the studio and all of that. There's a gym, I believe, in there, is in the Peterson Event Center. I mean, the Peterson Event Center is just such an amazing building, amazing place, amazing arena.
Yeah, we got to get it back to what it was like about 15, 20 years ago when the basketball team had that place rocking. And we had it going there for a little bit. But I'll tell you what, when the Oakland Zoo is full and the Pete is packed, there's nothing like seeing a game there. But you're right, it is good to have the facility right there. I think oftentimes in our job we have a lot of people come in from ESPN or announcers that travel in from wherever they live, and they're really excited to find out that the control rooms are just about a 30-second walk from the court. So that's really helpful in basketball season because, like I said, we'll have producers, directors sometimes that travel in from ESPN or announcers. And one thing that's typical for announcers to do on a basketball game day is go to shoot-arounds earlier in the day and meet with the coaches, watch the team, see them warm up before the game that night. And so it makes it very easy when our control rooms are right down the hall because then they can show up, watch the team shoot around, ask some questions to the coach and stuff like that. And then if they have something that they need that I can go run and grab in the control room, I can walk right down the hall, get it, and bring it right back out if I'm producing for them. And it's really convenient to have all of that right there. And like you said, the practice gym is right in the same area of the Pete as well.
I want to open it up to Jake Bell.
I
feel like you've been waiting there
you guys are on
patiently
a
for a
roll.
while.
No, it's all good. No, just wanted to ask you something that would definitely be helpful to us, maybe everyone watching too, that may be in this field. But this field is competitive in the sports broadcasting world, especially live events and stuff like that. But was there anyone that maybe helped you kind of get to where you were? Maybe it was a peer, maybe it was a mentor, but was there someone that really helped you get to where you're at now?
Oh my gosh, it's too many to list. We won't have time, but some of the first that come to mind, Kevin Wheeler, Bitsy Brandis were my first leaders at Pitt, and Kelly Hammonds as well. So shout out to them. They really got me into all of this, and I just wouldn't be here without them. And they've all gone on to do amazing things in the field. Kevin now directs for ESPN. He's also the voice of Pitt men's soccer, does play-by-play for them. Bitsy is a coordinating producer at the Big Ten Network, which is awesome. And Kelly is a big crewer in the area for a company called Program Productions. So she is now kind of taken that role where she is crewing a lot of the major events, not only in Pittsburgh, but in surrounding areas as well. So they've all been excellent. Paul Bardo as well is right in that group too. He's still at Pitt and oversees broadcast and video production. He's been at Pitt close to 20 years or over 20 years, and he's done an excellent job and has been a huge part of getting me to where I am now as well. Mention my team that I have there of producers: Sarah Johnson, Reagan Check, Tristan Russell. We've had that core group intact for I think 3 or 4 years now, and they're just awesome to work with. Anytime that somebody's busy and needs someone else to pick up for them, they're always all happy to do it. So they're fantastic. Couple supervisors I had when I interned at WTOV in Steubenville, Ohio: Julianne Pelusi, Rob Metzger. They were fabulous. So yeah, hopefully I didn't leave anybody out, but they have all been absolutely tremendous. I had some great professors at Pitt as well, and my family has been awesome too. My parents constantly encouraging me, telling me to keep at it. Got to give a shout out to my girlfriend too for 7 years. She's been along for the ride, and you guys all know, like, sports media is not an easy one to get into, and you need that support system to continue to have the courage to pursue it, and the long nights and the weekends where you're working games and stuff like that. And so I've been blessed to have all those people around me to help me get here.
What's your girlfriend's name?
Rachel.
Rachel.
Yeah.
Wave to Rachel, everybody. Subscribe to the podcast,
Thank you, Rachel.
She's in Disney. She
Yes.
works at Disney. That's such an amazing thing.
Yeah,
in Florida.
she's more talented than me, that's for sure. So
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. I felt like I was gonna say something. But I don't remember.
what else Jake got over here?
I don't know where he is.
He has some good questions over there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I guess we can transition to maybe football. I know this is a little off topic,
Let's do
but
it.
like, since you have more, you're more involved, especially with maybe before the season starts and everything like that. We all know that Pitt football is great with kind of bringing guys under the radar and making them NFL players. I mean, they grab these 3-star recruits and they can get them drafted, which is awesome. Was there anyone that you really felt came into Pitt like as a freshman and looked so great that you're like, yeah, this guy's going to be a future NFL player, whenever no one really knew who they were at the time?
Yeah, wow, that is a good question. I mean, you probably get this answer too often, but Kenny Pickett's game against Miami at the end of his freshman year was kind of a breakout game for him, where you kind of just knew he was going to be something special. And he dives for the pylon, and Pitt was 4-7 at the time. Miami's top 5 in the country, thinking they're going to the college football playoff. And in true Pitt fashion, we play spoiler. So that was one when Kenny had that game at the end of his freshman year. I'm trying to think if there's any others that coming in that nobody else kind of knew. I'm not usually good at identifying the under the radar guys. I let the experts do that. Aaron Donald, I think early in his career, you knew he was going to be something special that had a lot of potential. And I don't know, I would even say last year Kyle Lewis was kind of an under the radar guy, and then halfway into the season you're like, we have an All-American linebacker on this team. So yeah, it's been interesting to see over the years, but I think Pitt just does a fabulous job of developing talent. There's Pitt, a program that's not necessarily always going to get a ton of 5-star guys, right? This is not an SEC school, so a lot of the time you're not going to compete with the Georgias and the Alabamas and the LSU, obviously. But I know the stat that Pat Narduzzi always loves to throw out, and for good reason, is since Pitt joined the ACC, they are the only team that has won the conference not named Clemson or Florida State. So it's a league that is usually consistently dominated by those two programs, and Pitt obviously won the ACC championship in 2021. So I think Narduzzi's done a great job of being able to take the best talent he can get, even if it's not always going to be 5-star guys, and developing them into a program that can compete and push for ACC titles and big time bowl games and stuff like that.
I mean, if you think about it, so I guess this is us transitioning into the season, Pitt football, previewing the season here a little bit. If you think about it, I mean, over the last decade, I mean, the football program has been more relevant than the basketball program, which is, I don't know if that's necessarily a great thing, because the football program has been good. I wouldn't say it's been great, but it's been pretty good now under Narduzzi. For a while, 7-8 wins a year is kind of the expectation now, where a lot of years it was like, if we get 6 wins, we'll be lucky.
Yeah.
So that kind of speaks volumes about how the basketball program has been through a lot lately. But looking at this upcoming season, I mean, you're starting with Duquesne and then Central Michigan. Like, I think Pitt, and I think you guys will agree with me, they have a pretty, the schedule is in their favor, I feel like. And this West Virginia team, I feel, even though it's in Morgantown, I think with their defense, I've heard a lot of good things about the defense in camp. This is a team that should be in contention to make the ACC championship potentially. I mean, the ACC is very wide open every year. Florida State maybe will be better this year, but I mean, they had a really bad year last year, and Clemson has Cade Klubnik coming back, and they won the title again, so you can never count them out. But this is a team that has a schedule in their favor, I think. They have Notre Dame, Florida State, but what do you think of this team this year, Jason? Do you think this is a team that's going to compete?
I definitely think they will. I think they have the potential to be at least one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the conference.
Yeah.
I do think the conference can tend to be a little bit underestimated at times. I mean, Clemson is right up there with all of the college football powerhouses with what they've done under Dabo Swinney. But I think Pitt will be right up there, and this is the first time since Kenny Pickett where Pitt has a full-time starting quarterback who's coming back. They've kind of were working off 1-year rentals for a little bit there, and Keaton Slovis did a nice job. I think he kind of was the unfortunate one who had to deal with the fact that he was following Kenny Pickett, and so you're coming off the ACC title season where Pickett takes him to the Peach Bowl, and then Keaton Slovis has to follow that. They still had a 9-win season, so he did a nice job, and then obviously they bring in Phil Dracovic, don't have the season they want, but then they get Holstein. I think Pat Narduzzi made a good decision last year to start Eli Holstein. He's a redshirt freshman, but gives him a chance, and he really made the most of it and had a nice 7-0 start and battled some injuries in the back half of the year. But you bring him back, and he's still got 2 years of eligibility after this year. And you're not just bringing back him. I mean, you're bringing back Des Reed, who does so much for them, not just running the ball, but pass catching and returning as well, and bringing back 2 or 3 really good wide receivers, a few offensive linemen. I mentioned Lewis on the defensive side with Rasheem Biles as well. So there are a lot of pieces coming back on this team, and I don't think it's a fluke that they started 7-0. I know there were a lot of close games in there, and anytime you start 7-0, you never want to hear that you finished 7-6, but at the end of the day, they did start 7-0. So there's potential with this team, and I think you can grow so much from year 1 to year 2 with last year being Holstein's first year, offensive coordinator Cade Bell's first year, and so now getting an off season to kind of watch film, see what you take from that first year, move on to year 2. But I think experience is so big at the college football level, and especially experience playing with the same unit. You're taking a little bit of a gamble when you bring in a transfer quarterback after a few years who hasn't played in your system, has to get to know all new teammates. But I really like the fact that Pitt has a lot of stability coming back, and a lot of the pieces that led last year's team to a 7-0 start are going to be back. So I'm optimistic, and you were talking about the West Virginia game. Obviously, we'd like to get that one. That would be nice.
Oh yeah.
On 9/13.
Yeah,
We don't win. We
interesting.
got to win on 9/13 against the new West Virginia coach, Rich Rodriguez.
He's been talking a lot about Pitt as particular.
We live rent-free in his head. Like, we got to be honest, because, I mean, he's been coaching ever since, but I mean, if they beat Pitt in that game, like, I mean, they should have won. I mean, they were the better team on paper, obviously. They would have been the national championship.
Yeah.
Who knows what his career would have looked like after that. So,
right.
I mean, I don't blame him for wanting his revenge. I don't blame the guy.
I mean, that is one of those classic examples of who knows. Like you said, who knows what would have happened. I mean, he could have been at West Virginia this whole time, maybe, if they win that game. Because if you win a national championship, you buy yourself a lot more time and a lot more money to be the head coach of that program. So, that was one that nobody will ever forget.
And West Virginia, I mean, they've never gotten close to being that good.
No.
But, I mean, Dana Holgerson, I've always thought, did a good job. They always had stability there. And then he kind of left, and ever since, they've been... It's just very, yeah.
But, again, like Narduzzi was talking, too, in the era of NIL and the transfer portal, he said that Pitt retained basically everybody that they wanted to. And part of that, I think, is coach speak, right? You want to say that. But, I mean, Jordan Bass was a pretty big loss because he was a good linebacker and everything for Pitt. But we have our linebackers, our deepest position, and so he wanted an opportunity to start. You can understand that. And Sincere Edwards was an up-and-coming defensive end, I think, for Pitt. But other than that, I mean, it was a lot of guys that were kind of backups. And Narduzzi, I think his staff did a good job in the transfer portal, dipping in there and in the recruiting class this season to kind of plug some of those holes. I think it is a team that can compete, at the top. I think Clemson's going to be the favorite just because they returned Klubnik, the recruiting that they do and everything. But I think the ACC behind them typically is more wide open. Usually it's been Clemson. After Florida State's kind of run, a little over a decade ago, it's been really Clemson and somebody from the Coastal, right? It's like whoever from the Coastal.
I'm glad we don't have the divisions anymore. I'm glad it's just one.
But there was something about the Coastal. It's just the fun,
There's always competitive.
It's just like which 7-5 team is going
to which 7-5 team is going to be 25-point underdogs against Clemson? I remember when we faced Clemson.
I was at that game. The first ACC
I forget about
game.
that game.
Yeah.
Because Pickett wasn't Pickett in that game?
I believe.
He was
it was his first full year as a starter that year.
Still young at that point. But you're right, though. There was like that 7-year stretch where there was a different Coastal champion every
single year.
And it was like, which one's going to be able to beat Clemson? But
and it does show like the kind of ascension of Pitt football. We see the first ACC championship game obviously didn't go the way they wanted to, and Clemson at those times was just a complete heavyweight. I mean, they were right there with Alabama.
We played Trevor Lawrence that year.
I think it was Trevor Lawrence,
It was.
But then we see the ACC championship in 21, and I mean, honestly, you can make an argument they really could have been undefeated. I mean, they had the Western Michigan game.
Right.
They had that game even though the defense, was kind of giving up a good amount. And then the Miami game, I think that was a touch. I think everybody would say it was. I remember this was the time when I didn't have ACC Network at the time. So I was I could only follow the game. And I didn't know about some of the streaming. I was just following the game and I didn't see it live.
Yeah.
So and you see it after too. You see they got stopped at the one. You're like, oh no. But then you realize you get even more angry.
Yeah.
Because then I realized after, that should have been. I think it should have been.
Well, there was a safety missed call too, wasn't there?
I remember seeing that, and everywhere I went, like we went to a restaurant afterwards, and everyone was like, "That was a safety." I mean, I was like, "Yeah, I know."
Yeah, but
it's what it is.
It is what it is.
But then you see in the championship, they got off to a kind of slower start, and then the fake slide and everything, and then Pitt kind of flexed their muscle. Obviously, that was the best team of Narduzzi, I think. Obviously, no doubt. And they would have been in the college football playoff now, which is kind of the sad part because, there is still, with NIL now too, there's still the SEC and now the Big Ten with some of those big time schools that have a lot of financial flexibility. It is still going to be tough for teams like Pitt and other teams, in the ACC or the Big 12 or whatever to really consistently get there. So you would have loved to see them instead of playing Michigan State in the Peach Bowl, would have been maybe hosting a college football playoff game at Acrisure.
Yeah.
Was it Acrisure at the time? Or was it
Heinz still at that
Still Heinz.
point?
It would have had the Heinz kind of glory too.
I mean, if that's a good point. If you think about it, if there would have been a college football playoff 12 team that year, Pitt obviously would have made it. But it would have been. I mean, I don't know if our defense that year would have stopped whoever we would have played, because I'm sure there were a lot of, where we would have played some high-powered offense, but our offense could have competed with anybody in the country.
Yeah.
I believe that for sure.
And they got a lot of timely sacks too. Like, it's always the Narduzzi defense.
Yeah.
Your corners get a lot of pressure on them just because of the way they rush and everything. But they got they had like the most sacks in the country again and everything, and they got a bunch of timely sacks. I think they would have held their own for sure.
Well, people forget they had a first-round defensive lineman, Kalasha Cansey, so he was a big part in their defense, especially the front seven. So
yeah, everyone always talks about the quarterback, but you're right. That team had a lot of other really good pieces.
Servassier, he was a 2-star recruit too, which is crazy.
Remember he intercepted? Was that the same year
Clemson,
when he intercepted that was unbelievable.
Yeah, that always lives in my head because I remember vividly watching live and him. It was awesome.
DJ Uyunglele, and that's when you started to realize that Clemson team was not going to be the same as some of the others.
Yeah.
But
he was supposed to be so good.
Yeah.
DJ
He looked good the year before. I mean, he was competitive against Notre Dame, whenever he had to fill in for Lawrence. So.
Yeah. But I wanted to talk about too, kind of pivoting a little bit to Pitt basketball, because I think when Pitt basketball in the early 2000s was in their heyday, they kind of did what Pitt football is doing now, which is they didn't always get the 5 stars. They really rarely got the 5 and 4-star talent. They got tough, scrappy, 3-star kind of undervalued guys from the Bronx, and from New York and from Pittsburgh, and a lot of guys from Maryland, even the Baltimore area. And they were just tougher than everybody else, and that really showed through. Maybe they didn't have as much postseason success as they probably should as well, which we'll probably get to with volleyball and soccer we were talking about earlier. But I think if Pitt basketball, and Jeff Capel's been starting to get to that as well, and I think you talk about just where the program was when he inherited it to now, and a lot of people want to call for his job and everything.
It was
We've
a
seen
mess.
It was a complete mess, and we all remember the 0-18 ACC conference record. But I think he's really, I don't think he gets enough credit still for just turning this program around to, we saw a couple of years ago when the Pete wasn't necessarily where it was in those 2000s years, where it was just complete. It was one of the toughest places to play. But I was there a couple games. It was really loud. The Miami game, that's always a game. The Syracuse game, when Aiden Fish gets in the game, that was one of the best moments that I'll remember of that season. But I think getting back to that, and I think Jeff Capel's done a great job of just turning this program around. And I think this year, lost a lot in the transfer portal, obviously, but I think he's brought in a lot of guys who really fit the system more, as opposed to last season when he was trying to fit everybody in more on the fly, and it just didn't really work out.
Well, I think the biggest thing is that he's made them relevant again, right? Even though last year didn't end the way we wanted it to, the 2 years before that, he gets them to the tournament, and then the following year, a lot of people think he should have been in the tournament with that team, and ultimately was left as one of the first 4 out. But you said it, Jeff Capel, one thing he's told us repeatedly before the broadcasts is, I knew it was bad when I took the job. I didn't know it was this bad. Program was in an absolutely horrible spot, and Kevin Stallings was only there for 2 years, but did a lot of damage to Pitt basketball. And so Capel, it took some time for him to get him back on track, but looking at this year's team, I've compared it a few times actually to the 22-23 team that ended up making the tournament, just because that was the year where, he came in his first year, he got his big-time recruits, Xavier Johnson, Trey McGowan's, Audis Toney, and those guys for some time looked like they were maybe going to be the group to get them back and make the tournament. But going into 22-23, I remember him saying about how much he prioritized getting guys that appreciated wearing the Pitt jersey and being a part of that team, and were grateful for that opportunity. And if you think about that team, you have Blake Hinson, who was basically exiled from D1 basketball. Ole Miss and Iowa State both kind of wrote him off and said they didn't want him. Jeff Capel comes and gives him a chance, and he ends up being the best player the program has had in recent history. So you get a guy like him, you get a guy like Nelly Cummings, who's from the area and grew up dreaming of wearing a Pitt uniform. And so Capel has learned a lot in his own recruiting. And so that's been really neat to watch, is how his strategy has evolved, not only with NIL and the portal, but with his own priorities and what he's noticed works for the University of Pittsburgh. Because I think that'd be tough for anybody. You're going from Duke, where as good as a recruiter Jeff Capel is, he's working at Duke, right?
Yeah.
And it's not quite as hard to get people to come play for Duke as it is to come to Pitt. And so he takes on this challenge of now you're the head coach at Pitt, and you've got to recruit in a similar way you did to Duke, but find out the differences there to still get guys that can win you basketball games. And so the reason I bring it all back to this year is just because the team is so new. Going into that 22-23 season, it was kind of his make or break year. It was, I believe, year 5 for him at the time, and it was, if you don't make the tournament this year, you're probably losing your job. And so he goes out and he gets basically a whole new roster. And going into that year, we didn't know what to expect because it was all guys that we hadn't really seen play before. And so this year's similar. You know, there's a couple pieces coming back that I think will help, but on the whole, you're bringing in a lot of transfers, a handful of freshmen as well. And so it's hard to predict. I think there's a wide range of outcomes that could come with this year, but I like the class he's brought in from freshmen and transfer guys as well. And I think he's learned a lot. And at this point, I trust that he knows how to put this team in a position to win.
In the age of NIL and transfer in the transfer portal, it's tough in football. But basketball, it is really, really tough because in football, you have all these players. In basketball, you have, 11, 12 guys on a team.
Yeah.
And, these starters will pick up and leave, a smaller school. Like, now, there are much smaller schools in Pitt who have even bigger issues, but, and they go to these big schools. And then you got to find a way to replace them. Now, with this year's Pitt team, and looking at last year's team, there needed to be some overhaul because there was a lot of I feel like there was a lot of talent, but it just didn't feel like they were a team, that they were a cohesion, and it didn't feel like and I felt like there was a lack of toughness. You brought up toughness. I think there was a lack of toughness. And not just the fact that, we were bad on the boards and we couldn't rebound and we weren't physical down low, but just overall as a team, just not enough toughness. And they've gotten some really good forward recruits this year, some big men.
That rebound.
Who should put in that toughness that this team needs. And I think the big question right now isn't necessarily will we have forwards and big guys, but will we have the guard play that we've seen in past years, like from Blake Hinson. And I think one of the guys who we expected a lot from and it didn't quite work out was, I'm forgetting his name. Who was our point guard last year?
Jalen Lowe.
Yeah. Jalen Lowe, and that didn't work out. I don't know where he is now.
He went to Kentucky, like you were mentioning about going to Blue Bloods. Even like Pitt, like that is a one of the better, still programs, I think, basketball-wise, just the history, recent history. They're still the Blue Bloods, the Kentuckys that I think Pitt, wants to reach that point. And I think when they were in their heyday, I think they were considered one of those because they were perennially in the top 10. And I agree, like you were talking about, they brought in some size. They brought in this player from Australia, too, Roman Cialupa. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right, but he looks like...
I don't either. We got to wait for the pronunciation.
Yeah, the pronunciation. But he looks like... I mean, he was one of the top players in Australia, kind of, even like just NBA draft eligible, I think, and he's a bigger guy. I think he could provide a lot of that toughness. He has a lot of really high skill level, so I'm looking forward to it a lot. The question, I think, again, will be shooting, because I think we didn't realize, I think, even Jeff Capel or maybe that coaching staff, I mean, just us fans as a whole, how big of a loss he would be. Just his impact, I think, in the locker room, the toughness he brought, and also the lights out shooting that he had. Because there was long stretches. We lost a lot of games, Pitt, last season. The Clemson game at home, the Louisville game at home. Just had a couple threes maybe, or buckets go their way, a couple more rebounds, and they're in the tournament maybe. I mean, so I think that this year it is a big year again for Jeff Cable, but I think he did a really nice job because he knew he was going to lose a lot of guys, and obviously not having Damian Dunn for large portions of last season really hurt as well because he was great in the non-conference before he got hurt.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the shooting because I think that was a big factor in why last year didn't maybe turn out as Pitt hoped, because the loss of Blake Hinson maybe was even underestimated a little bit. I mean, his first year at Pitt, he was lights out shooter. I think we remember the Mississippi State game in the tournament where he chucked one up from half court, and you're like, what is he doing? And then it goes in. I mean, that was just the type of shot that he could make. And then his second year, when he had a little bit of a slump in his second year, but finished strong at the end of the season. And so then you go into last year where you don't really know who that knockdown shooter was going to be. I think there were times people maybe thought Amsel Delalic could be it, but he started out the year hurt and just never really quite caught up to speed on what people thought he could be. And so nothing against Zach Austin. I think Zach Austin was a very good player and probably was the most NBA-ready player of any guy on last year's team.
And he improved his three-point shot a lot.
He did. But that being said, going into the year, if you told me the team leader in three-point percentage was going to be Zach Austin, I probably wouldn't have liked the sound of that. And again, that's nothing against him. He was a good three-point shooter, but I think we needed help for him in that area and just never really quite got it. Jalen Lowe, it's funny, we talk about him going to Kentucky. He was very bad three-point shooting last year. Good player, helped the team significantly in other ways, but his three-point shooting was worse than it was his freshman year. And so I don't think Pitt anticipated that either. And so that's going to be huge. I think that they've accounted for that with this year's team. And I mean, that's basketball in 2025, right? You got to be able to shoot the three. So that's a big key to winning. It showed that with Blake Hinson, and we'll hope that they have a solution in that area for this year.
And I think if you look at last year's team, it kind of reminded me a lot of like Cable's old Pitt teams where, you know, Xavier Johnson and Trey McGowan's, they were both very ball dominant. It kind of didn't work very well.
Low and Leggett.
Exactly. Like this year, they were more, I'd say they're more talented than maybe those two, and that's why they were better. But if you look at the March Madness team, it was very good structurally, like as a starting lineup. Like Jamarius Burton was the ball dominant guy. Nellie Cummings was the pass-first point guard. Greg Elliott was a sharpshooter. You had Hinson, who can kind of do both, like shoot from the outside, but also was very good down low. And then you had the defensive specialist in Federico. So I feel like
those guys were all old and experienced,
exactly,
too, which was huge. Which maybe last year's team didn't have quite as much of that too.
Right, and I see a lot of that in this year's team, where like like they brought in the guy who I assume is going to be the point guard. I forget his name. He was with a couple schools.
DeMarco Minor.
Yeah, he's. I think he could be a very good playmaker. He averaged 7 assists last year or something like that per game, which is significant in college basketball.
Yeah.
So.
You have DeMarco Minor. He's the new point guard, right?
Yes. Yep.
And again, I don't want to be like taking shots at Jalen Lowe, but like he was an amazing scorer going to the basket and getting layups. He was really talented. I'm sure Kentucky he'll do very well there, but he was too, especially late in games, it was too much just Jalen Lowe, he has the ball, I'm going to go and make a play myself. And I don't know if that was him or if that was just the game plan towards the end of games and just generally, but that led to a lot of turnovers. And as the point guard, you have to, a lot of turnovers and a lot of bad shots. And as the point guard, I want a guy who's maybe not going to score as much and may not be as talented of a scorer,
but makes the right play,
but looks for the open shot, looks for the right shot, makes the correct passes, tries to find the guy. You want to be the quarterback of the offense. And it just didn't feel like that to me last year. There wasn't really a quarterback of the offense who was getting everybody involved and protecting the ball. And I think that's what we need to see this year from the guard play. From this DeMarco Minor and getting it. This year's team strength should be the forwards, and that's kind of been an issue under Cable. But it should be the forwards and the centers who are making the big plays, and it's the point guard's job to get that going. So to get everybody going.
And you wonder how much too of that was him going through the early portion of the season, maybe not getting as much scoring help as he thought he would get, and starting to feel that he's got to take some of that on himself, especially when they lose Damian Dunn. who was playing great at the start of the year. I think he had 21 or something against West Virginia. And I tell you what, when you had him, Dunn, Leggett, Lowe in the backcourt, and Austin coming off the bench, you really thought that this team could have something. And
that is true.
We talk about what if West Virginia had beaten Pitt in football? What if Damian Dunn had never gotten injured? I think that the season could have looked very different. Pitt was projected a 5 seed in the tournament at one point last year, top 20 team in the country, and obviously fell off pretty fast. But I do wonder if Damian Dunn had never gotten hurt, how that would have shifted things. And some people will say, oh, well, he came back for some games in conference play, but they just got out of their rhythm without him. And I remember his first game back was the game at Cameron Indoor. Like, that's a tough that's a tough welcome back there to the team.
And it was like Cameron. A question, like, is he going to play? Just like a game time decision. And he kind of he just looked like he was a step slower, kind of being wary of his injury. And I think that's a great point. I mean, they had a great style of play with him. They were really rolling. I mean, he got hurt against Wisconsin in that neutral site game, and even without him, they were there to the end. You figure with him, they could have very easily won that game too. But he gets hurt, and then they play a different style, which it was got a lesser style anyway. You lose a guy like Damian Dunn, and then you try to reintegrate him back into the offense, and they just didn't. They could just never really get it rolling, and he got hurt again, and then. It just kind of snowballed from there, but I think it will be key. I think the veteran leadership. I think the Deshaun Jackson from Iowa State looks like a really good kind of big man. I think another year of Cam Corrin. I think Cam Corrin also just was a little bit. He kind of fell out of place and kind of didn't quite fit in last year's team. I think this year, another year with Capel, another year in the system. I think he'll be better as well. I think the center position could be as good as it's been under Capel. It's always been kind of a little bit of a concern. I think with Federico, he did a really nice job, but there were offensive limitations. We could have used
Federico that last year. He was making plays. I was rooting for Texas Tech in the tournament. I was like, there he is, Federico.
Yeah.
How can you not love saying Federico?
Yeah. 2 times. Yeah. He was. He had a good season at Texas Tech, and that's a really well coached team that did well in the tournament. But I like Deshaun Jackson. I think Capel brought in Corrin to kind of fulfill that big, tough interior presence that he felt he wasn't really getting out of Federico. And Corrin didn't have a great year, and I think Capel kind of took it one step further and is like, all right, we're going to add even more interior toughness.
Yeah.
If you've seen pictures of Deshaun Jackson, the dude is massive.
And he's from Iowa State. They're a very tough program.
Tough program, very good program. They're elite in college basketball right now, so that's a great get. And I like the other Iowa State guy too, Indrasitis. Talk about 3-point shooter. Yeah, he could be it. So I'm excited. It's a lot of wild cards and a lot of unknowns, but I think they could surprise people. And just like that team in 22-23 did, I think at that point, again, year 5 for Jeff Capel, everyone kind of doubted them and doubted him, and he put together what seemed like just a hodgepodge of guys, and then ended up making the tournament and winning a couple games.
Hodgepodge of nothingness.
it showed that it was not a hodgepodge.
It was that Pitt team. We all bought in last year. It is a great point about Damian Dunn. We all bought in last year with that. They had a much harder non-conference schedule to begin
intentionally
with. Because the year before, the reason they didn't make the tournament was, they didn't have a hard non-conference schedule. I have issues with the whole committee and that I think it needs a whole overhaul with the tournament.
But don't expand it. Don't
expand it.
Do not expand the NCAA tournament.
Jason Earle, he's very adamant. Do not expand the tournament.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
No.
Like, it's the greatest tournament.
About money.
Yeah, that's true. But it's the greatest tournament in sports.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly.
It's long enough. We don't need it to be longer.
We've seen, like, Virginia when Pitt didn't make it. We saw that some of those teams at the back half, maybe not even.
Right.
Even though I think 2 years ago, Pitt, obviously, the way they were played at the end of the season, they obviously deserved, I think, to make it. But they always say it's not about who's deserving. They always say that, and everything. And they look at the total body of work. But I think Capel and his staff, like you were talking about the tougher non-conference. And this season, too, they have a tougher non-conference as well. They've really made a point at beefing up the non-conference schedule.
Yeah, this year especially. I mean, you have, just off the top of my head, I know you've got West Virginia, Villanova, Penn State, Ohio State, Texas A&M. I mean, that's what,
right.
5-6 power conference opponents right there. So I don't want to hear about non-conference strength of schedule in March if Pitt's on the bubble, because there's no argument this year for that.
But I've made a vow to myself, because the last 2 years were the complete opposite, because the Pitt team that arguably should have been in the tournament 2 years ago, that team started off terribly. I mean, really, they just looked bad. And then once December, January, really, that team started to get going and became a tournament team. And last year, it was fool's gold. We thought, this team is like going to win the tournament. They're going to win the conference. and we went to that. All three of us were at that West Virginia game, and that was a good That West Virginia team should have been in the tournament last year. That was a big time
blunder by the
I don't know what that was about, but.
Maybe the loss.
But
kept them out.
Kept them out again.
I mean,
blowout loss.
Well, that's a whole nother topic. But I mean, we watched that game. And it was like, oh my gosh, like this is unbelievable. This team, they're just a machine, and
it was from start to finish too. I remember I called that game, and within 10 minutes, like Pitt was up 15 or something, and you really, like you said, you thought we had something special on our hands. So
But then once the season once we really got into conference play, we saw the issues with the forwards, and then of course no Damian Dunn. It just kind of ruined things, and then we saw, you know what, this I think we've been deked out here.
But I still think like if they were full strength the whole year, it would have gone better no matter
what.
And Schlegel missed a few games too, at different stretches too, and those are a couple games he lost. But
but
I
it's
agree.
it's just a lesson that what I've vowed to myself is don't take October and November basketball too seriously, because the teams that have success and make the tournament, unless you're like a power, they get better as the season goes along. You see improvement as the season goes along. And when you start out really strong and you start to fade off, like the best teams in March are the teams that get hot towards the end of the season and just keep getting better and better and better. You want to see a team, you see your team get better from the beginning to the end of the season in college basketball.
Yeah, it's a long season. And, that's a good point. I often forget about the West Virginia game 2 years ago, because I called that one too, or 3 years ago. I'm getting my years mixed up. But the 22-23 year when Pitt made the tournament, and like you said, it started out with losing to West Virginia by 20, 30-some points on our home floor. And you almost thought, here we go again, year 5 of Jeff Capel, and we're headed on the same path. And wow, did he turn them around and made that into a special year. So you just never know. And it is a long season. I mean, we talk about this, we were just talking about it the other day, our staff with soccer, they start like mid-August here, and then their regular season is done in mid to late October. Whereas basketball, you start in early November. If you have a good year, you're playing until early April. That's almost half the year. It's almost half of the full calendar year you're playing college basketball. So it's a long season. Wouldn't have it any other way. It's my favorite college sport. It's my favorite sport of all, actually, is college hoops. So, but yeah, it's like you said, you want to get hot towards the end of the season going into the tournament, but a lot of games, long season, and can't write anybody off too early.
And it's cool how that team, they still believe in Capel even with the tough start, like the West Virginia game, the Michigan game. I mean, you look at a guy like Federico, who decommitted from West Virginia to go to Pitt, and then he lost to Pitt by over 20. And then, it makes you kind of question, the coach that you committed to, like, hey, do I really believe in this? But it's really cool to see all those guys really kind of push for themselves and push for Capel to kind of just turn their season around.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Federico, he was a good piece on those teams, no doubt.
I just had a question about your broadcasting. Is there, you probably get this question a lot, but is there like one game or maybe a few games that really were kind of your favorites to call? Maybe the West Virginia game from this past season?
Yeah, I mean, that one was just a blast for the reasons I said, because Pitt got up early and just never looked back. So that was just 2 hours of sitting there enjoying watching Pitt just crush West Virginia.
Yeah.
And, it's always a fine line we try to toe there. Any part of being a sports announcer, you want to be unbiased, but everyone knows I went to Pitt. I work for Pitt, and we're on the ACC network.
Right.
So, that was an enjoyable game. I did call the Kenny Pickett Miami game for student radio. So that was kind of my first introduction to what it was like to call a really exciting game. And I remember that one was actually over Thanksgiving. And the sports director at the student radio that time was really trying to get me to call it because over Thanksgiving break, a lot of the students go home and you don't have many options. And I'm like, I don't know. Like the team's 4-7.
Yeah.
Like I think it was on Black Friday. I was like, I just want to, like, day after Thanksgiving, I kind of just want to hang out. But I think they're like, oh, we really need you, man. Like nobody can do it. And so thankfully,
that was a great decision.
I was smart enough to make the decision to do it and got treated with an awesome game. So those are two of the ones that come to mind. Pitt Louisville volleyball and Pitt Penn State volleyball. They've had some really, really good games. I called the volleyball match in the, what would that have been, 2021 NCAA tournament, I want to say. I remember it because it was the same night of the fake slide and the Kenny Pickett game. But that was the first time that Pitt volleyball had beaten Penn State. It was kind of the changing of the guard. Now, of course, Penn State has once again gotten really, really good at volleyball, and they're coming off a national title. But that 2021 year, some of my friends were going down to the ACC championship game in Charlotte. Of course, that's the year we won it. Would have been nice to go. It was unfortunate they were on the same night, but I got to stay back, call the volleyball match when they beat Penn State. Because Pitt was always kind of the little brother to Penn State in volleyball up until that point. And they beat him in that match, and they move on the NCAA tournament. And that would have been, I believe, the first year they went to the Final Four of this 4 straight year stretch where they've been. So that was really cool. That's another really good one that comes to mind in terms of fun games that I've gotten to call, and hopefully we'll get to add to the list.
That might be one of the. I didn't know that happened on the same night. If you think about it, that might be one of the, if not the best day in Pitt football or in Pitt athletics history, or at least in the 21st century, to win the ACC championship in football and to go to the Final Four in volleyball. Yeah,
that game got them to the Sweet 16, but they eventually made the Final Four.
To beat Penn State, though.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. It made it really special.
Go ahead.
No, you do. Did you do the Bub Carrington triple-double game?
I did. That's why I left off the list. Yeah, you're right.
Because I was thinking, because I know I've heard you. I always try to watch it on ACC Network like extra. I was trying to find the non-conference. It's harder to watch the non-conference games.
Yeah.
But I always hear you calling those games. I was wondering if you called that one. That was a special game.
I did get to do that one, and that's definitely one I left off the list, but that's right up there with all of them. Especially just because, like you said, I really only get to do the non-conference for hoops, which most of the time, it's great. I love it. I enjoy doing it, but most of the time, you guys know, we go and we typically beat North Carolina A&T or Radford by 30 points, and I'm not really getting to call an exciting game.
Right.
But that was one where, I showed, I think that one might have been North Carolina A&T, expecting it to be a blowout, and before you know it, you've got this freshman who a little bit about, but even he I don't think was a top 100 recruit out of high school. And then the closer you got to the season, you started to hear more and more buzz about this Bub Carrington. And then he goes and does that in his first game, and it's like we kind of talked about earlier, in this business you just need to be ready for anything. You never know when you're going to have a historic moment, and we got one that night. It was really cool, really special.
I remember hearing that Carrington was going to be announced a starter. I was hearing good things, and I was like, that's interesting, because Lowe was ranked higher than him. He was a consensus top 100 recruit. And seeing Carrington start, I'm like, wow, people in the staff must see something in this kid. He ends up being a first-round pick, so that's awesome.
Lottery pick. It was crazy. And it makes sense now that you think about it. I mean, how long he is for a guard, and really creative with the ball in his hands, and it's been cool. He had a good first year with the Wizards too, but he is kind of your prototype for an NBA guard in 2025 and wish we had him for more than 1 year.
Right,
but he's
what could he use them this past season?
Imagine if we would have been a tournament team if we had him, and you put him at point. He was at the point. Yeah. And then you'd have Lowe at the 2.
Lowe kind of backed him up in their first year when they were together. Lowe kind of backed him up. And then it was partway through the season, Capel kind of shifted the lineup he put Lowe in the starting 5 alongside him and moved Leggett to come off the bench
Correct,
in that,
yep.
that first year. But yeah, that was a good group
That's
of
a
guards.
shame. But
You
good
wonder-
for him. Good for him.
You wonder if Lowe would have been maybe more of a shooting guard at times as well. If he would, maybe less responsibility, maybe that shooting, form, and maybe he would have been able to shoot better as well. It would have been, I think, a beneficial domino effect, if
Yeah.
Bub Carrington. But he had a great
But he
year
made
with
the right
Wizards.
decision.
Yeah,
He did.
You know
did.
what? I really, that team 2 years ago, I wish they would have gotten in the tournament so bad, obviously, but mainly because they hit their stride at the end of the year.
Right.
And if you think about that roster, I mean, they had Hinson, Bub, Leggett, and Lowe all on that roster, in addition to all the forwards they had as well. That was a really, really good roster in hindsight, but you just didn't really realize it till they got hot at the end of the year. And I always kind of thought, we talked about full body of work type of thing. It almost, that year in particular, made me want to argue that there should be some type of recency factor
Yes.
in going into the
Yes.
selection Sunday,
especially
right?
with
Yes.
freshman point guard,
Yes.
freshman,
Exactly.
they need time to develop.
And I just wish that the committee had a recency factor in terms of who is playing well as of late.
Right now.
But they
right.
say the game on November 7th means the same as the
Yeah.
game on
But it
March
doesn't.
7th. So.
And that's what they don't understand. I complain about this every single year.
Yeah.
Like, yet it depends on the situation. But, and this goes back to, you want teams in the tournament to be playing better as the year goes along. Pitt and some of these other teams who missed out over Virginia were the better team at that moment. They were the better team. And I feel like that has to matter more than, you didn't have a good non-conference schedule in November.
Right.
Like, it's like to me, it's like April and May in baseball. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter that much.
Well-
It shouldn't matter as much as I think it does sometimes.
And I'll tell you the other thing that Jeff Capel has said about that year is that they got punished for non-conference schedule over and over. They did not schedule knowing that those teams were going to have as bad years as they did.
Right.
I mean, there were a handful of power conference opponents on the non-conference schedule. It just so happened that Missouri had a terrible season.
And then, that
and they
lost.
lost.
Yeah.
That was what killed them.
West Virginia had a terrible. That was the year where Bob Huggins had his incident in the offseason, and suddenly West Virginia, who's normally a tournament team,
Right.
it has a terrible year because they're working off an interim head coach. So you've got two right there. I think there were a couple others as well where, he made the argument of, we got knocked for our non-conference strength of schedule. We didn't know those teams were going to be as bad as they turned out, and what can you do about that? And so, like we talked about earlier, he's made up for it this year because you've got 5 or 6 power conference opponents, and you can't really knock them for that. So, but yeah, that was frustrating. It's just that, you make the schedule, you don't know what other teams are going to do throughout the season, and it was like he got penalized for scheduling badly when he doesn't know. He didn't know that.
You can't place blame on a team and a program for when they schedule these power conference teams. And then the Michigan, I think too, I think was that the Juwan Howard blowout. That might have been that year too.
And I think Missouri and West Virginia, if I'm correct, both made the tournament the year before. So what are you supposed to do?
Yeah. I just think the committee, it's actively, we were talking about college football, they almost need a higher up, a commissioner almost.
Yeah.
I feel like the basketball also needs that in terms of just because I think the committee, you have such a great product in the tournament. I feel like the committee, every year, does something almost to try to undermine it in some way. Maybe not intentionally, but it's just the way. I think the way that they kind of evaluate teams at the end might be a little bit outdated based on, the evolution of college sports now.
And there's definitely bias when you have these blue blood athletic directors who are helping make these decisions for the committee. And we've made the argument, there are so many bracketologists out there that do such a good job.
And they're so accurate at the end.
And they're so, most people agree okay, that makes the most sense. They're very logical. If you put a bunch of them in a room and have them make it, I think it would be a much smoother process.
Yeah, and this is actually a topic that I heard on a podcast. If you guys don't listen, shameless plug to the Ion College Basketball podcast, CBS Sports College Hoops podcast. It's fantastic. I listen to it year round. Even in the summer, they're doing preseason
I didn't even know they were going in the summer.
They do it in the summer.
Yeah.
They do it year round, and it's fabulous. Maybe the best sports podcast I've listened to, but besides this one, of course. But, but they talked about this as well, where it just seems outdated. And this isn't to say you should eradicate having ADs and conference commissioners on the committee, but when you have, like you said, bracketologists, you have Ken Palm, Bart Torvik, and Evan Miyakawa, and you have all these different kind of data-driven approaches to this, and you're not using any of those voices on the committee. And I just don't know if you ask me who's watching more college basketball and who should have a say in who these teams are getting in. Like, is Jay Billis watching more college basketball, or is it the AD of some random school that, with all due respect, the AD of that school has to do their job, which is to cover all their sports teams at their school. I don't think they're watching as much college basketball or as Jay Billis or Gary Parrish or Jay Wright or whoever, right? So yeah, I think it could be tweaked in that regard a little bit, just that, there becomes an opportunity where you can get voices who watch more of the game and cover more of the game to have a say in that.
Jake, you got any? I know you had some more questions. I don't know if you want
to. We can do this one. Could be related to basketball. So, was there any Pitt team going into maybe the offseason or maybe just going the regular season that it could be for any sport that you really felt like this could be their year for that sport? It could be a team that's consistently great, or it could be a team that you feel would come out of nowhere and they kind of exceeded your expectations.
That's a good question. I'll tell you what, probably the last couple of years I've had some of those for volleyball and men's soccer, I think, would be two that immediately come to mind. The fall is super fun at Pitt because you have both of those teams. Women's soccer has made a couple good runs as of late. Obviously, football getting the ACC championship a few years ago. I did go into last year thinking that it was the year for volleyball.
I think we all did.
I think everybody did. And coming off 3 straight trips to the Final Four, you had Olivia Babcock and Tori Stafford. You had Rachel Fairbanks, who was, kind of the centerpiece of it all as a setter. Emmy Klicka was a fantastic libero. You had Bree Kelly, a middle blocker, who is now healthy, the transfer from Florida. She had a great year, and you just got a feeling early on that it was going to be special, and it still was. I mean, number 1 overall seed, trip to the Final Four. But I would say in terms of a team where beginning of the year, you just felt like it was going to be the year that Pitt maybe got a national championship, I think that would be the one I would point to. I've never felt more confident in a team winning a national championship than I did with that team at the start of last season. So, but again, Dan Fisher is arguably the best coach in the country. So he's going to put him in contention every single year. I'd expect they're going to have a great season again.
I'd agree. Yeah.
I want to talk about coaches because obviously as a broadcaster, I'm sure you have some relationships. Especially you're talking about Jeff Capel. Can you talk about some of the relationships maybe you've built with coaches and how that's gone for you?
Yeah, no, it's been awesome to get to know all of them at Pitt. Really, we have very few, if any, that we have a tough time getting on the schedule or getting a call set up with. They're all really helpful in that regard. Jay Vidovich, I'll give a shout out to him. He's been really special to get to know. And I can't remember. This is either year 8 or year 9 maybe for him at Pitt this fall. But that's a guy who came here when Pitt men's soccer was nothing really in the ACC. They had not achieved anything since joining the ACC, and he turns them into a team that's been to the College Cup semifinals twice. And he is just such a deep thinker when you talk to him. And we've been fortunate to have a pretty consistent announcing crew as well for his games. Kevin Wheeler and David Day are the announcers for men's soccer, and they do an excellent job, not only when they're calling the games, but when they talk to Jay. And it's been helpful for me to watch, too, just to see how they interview him and talk to him and the relationship they've built with him. And Jay is just so kind with his time. He will spend sometimes over an hour on Zoom with us before a game. And it's crazy because we will have just talked to him last week before the last game. And it'll just be a week that goes by, and Kevin and David find an hour's worth of new topics to talk about. Jay gives us the time of day to talk about that stuff, and he's fantastic. We love working with him. Randy Waldrum, the women's coach, is same way. He's always generous with his time, and he's actually now passed the torch to his son Ben, who's going to be the head coach for this fall. Randy's still heavily involved in the program, but they've all been really good. Dan Fisher, Narduzzi, I don't work with quite as much just because, like I said, we don't do as much with football. Capel, again, he welcomes us at shoot around, and it's been neat getting to know Tori Verdi through a couple years. Wrestling coach Keith Gavin. I haven't gotten to know gymnastics Coach McPherson yet. Jenny Allard is a legend, the softball coach coming from Harvard. It's been good to get to know her, and Mike Bell, baseball coach as well. Emily Boissonneau, lacrosse. I mean, they're all good, but I had to give a special shout out to Jay. I mean, he's an outstanding coach, outstanding mind. Especially me. I played soccer in high school. That was the one varsity sport I played in high school, and so getting to talk to him, he won a national championship when he was the head coach at Wake Forest, and so to watch the evolution of that program has been really, really neat because they were truly at rock bottom when he took it over. And now to see, if you guys haven't been, the environments at Ambrose Urbanic Field are so cool for men's and women's soccer, really. But the men, the past couple of years, have had some really deep runs in the tournament, and it's been neat to watch. So that's super exciting. You hear a lot about the environment at volleyball and football and basketball, and those are awesome, of course, but soccer as well at Ambrose Urbanic Field, and it's up right on top of the hill, so you get some really cool scenic sunsets in the backdrop there.
Is it near the baseball field?
Yep, same
Okay.
complex. So
They're all baseball,
Right.
and softball, and
Peterson Sports Complex, you got softball, soccer, baseball, all lined up there.
By the soccer, first of all, they were number 1 in the country last year, right? The men's at one
I
point.
believe they were
'Cause
at
I
one
remember
point,
seeing it
yeah.
at the football game, and everyone was cheering, like, oh, they're number 1 in the country.
Yeah, I think last year was the year. It's hard to keep track because they and volleyball have both been great in recent seasons, but I believe it was last year where both of them were number 1 at the same time, which was awesome. And they both made deep runs. I mean, volleyball made it to the Final Four, soccer made it to the Elite Eight, and what more can you ask for? I mean, we're still hoping for that national title for one of them at some point, but they both have been awesome.
Now that new athletic complex that's being
Yeah,
built.
yeah, so
was that what you were gonna?
Yeah, I was
Okay.
gonna-
Thinking. Have you seen any of it? Is it?
I haven't been able to walk in it yet, but
Yeah.
it looks from the outside that it's just about done. So to my understanding, volleyball likely will not play in there this year, but
Right.
But next year I would expect them to probably get in there and play, which will be really awesome. I'm excited to see them in that new building, and I mean they deserve it, right? They've turned themselves into a national powerhouse, and so I'm pumped.
What's it called? The
Victory Heights. Is that Victory Heights?
Yeah, yep, Victory Heights, and we'll look forward to seeing them, and wrestling and gymnastics are going to be in there.
And every program too. This is like basically every program is on the up. It seems like too. I mean, wrestling's been really good, really solid. The
Wrestling's
past several
been
years.
steady, consistent.
You talk about men's soccer. I mean, I wasn't in past years before the last couple of years. I didn't really know anything about Pitt men's soccer or women's soccer. That we've been playing a lot better the past couple of years too. But yeah, Jay Vinovich, he does seem like, I've seen like interviews like after matches and stuff, and he does seem like somebody you could have a long, days long almost conversation with about really anything.
Yeah, he's fantastic, and so many of the questions you'll ask him, and he'll take like 10 seconds before he answers, and you're like, what's going through his head right now?
It's a really thoughtful response.
Yes, exactly. And that's why you appreciate it, is just because he's thinking long and hard about what he's going to say and how he's going to respond. So yeah, he's been great. I think me and Kevin and David, we're going to get out to one of his trainings later this week to see his new team. And they actually had an exhibition Friday that I went to against Robert Morris over at Ambrose, and came away with a 2-1 win. So, but he's another one just like Fisher, where he has established this system where they're one of the top programs in the country. And you don't know exactly what the recruiting class looks like from year to year, but you just put the faith in the head coach that he's gotten them to the top of the sport, and you trust that he's going to do that year over year.
And I'm hoping too, like the kind of the concern in this new era, we've talked about the NIL and transfer portal, is the prioritization. I don't like where it's going in terms of the prioritization of football and basketball as just the main sports. We're seeing, like I've seen talks, and I don't think these are all true or anything, but we've seen programs. I mean, St. Francis, PA they just had a really nice basketball season. They're going to be going down to D3. We see some of these programs cutting, some of these Olympic sports, and that's something I really hope doesn't happen at Pitt, because we're seeing them, like I was saying, a lot of them on the up, and you don't want to see. Like, I hope football and basketball, I love the teams. I hope they have a lot of success, but I don't want that to always be, to be at the cost of some of these Olympic sports like men's soccer and volleyball, certainly, which has to be bringing in a ton of money and ton of eyeballs. I mean, I saw this season there are a lot of national television games again against Kentucky, Louisville, Penn State, some of the best teams. So I really hope that in the next few years that doesn't happen at the cost of putting more NIL into football, trying to get a quarterback or a big-time basketball recruit.
But the sad reality of it is that's where the money is, and in the end, it's about the money.
Yeah.
And but there has to be. I don't know what you think about this, Jason, but there has to be some regulations, and I think because this is a new thing, like the NCAA is trying to figure out like what they need to do to make it consistent and fair for everybody. But there has to be some regulations as far as money. I mean, if people have talked about like a salary cap almost with NIL spending, and I don't know with all, so I don't know what your thought, and with everyone transferring, I mean, every single year, I mean, my dad was talking about this yesterday. You hear about like some kid gets drafted and he played at Temple and Florida and then Florida State. That was a random combination of schools, but yeah.
No, it's I do not envy athletic directors or the people in college sports in high-ranking positions right now, because there are a ton of moving pieces. It's all over the place. A lot of people out there think they have the solution. I am not one of those people, right? Like I don't know what the solution is right now, but you're right in that it has gotten out of control. I think in some ways it has been better. In other ways it has been worse. Yeah. But what I mentioned to somebody the other day is just with NIL, I think the goal of it was you should be able to walk into a Pitt football stadium or a Pitt basketball stadium arena and buy a shirt that says Hinson 2 on the back, right? Like say, you go to it used to be you would go to a Pitt football game and they would sell jerseys maybe that had a 25 on it for LaShawn McCoy, but it was not allowed to say McCoy, which I always thought was ridiculous. I mean, the guy has had enough success in his career that people want to buy his jersey. They should be allowed to do that, and he should be able to earn money from doing that, from being a great football player to the point where people would pay to have a jersey with his name on it or pay to have his autograph. He should not be prevented from doing that. But when they unleashed NIL, they didn't have many regulations on it, didn't know how to monitor it, and so that's when it kind of got out of control and it just turned into pay for play, essentially. And so again, with the college football and college basketball video games, kind of the same thing, right? I remember playing NCAA basketball 08 where you're playing with Pitt and it's like PG number 1 passes to C number 52. It's like, all right, that's obviously Trey Woodall and Gary McGee, but they can't say the names. So I'm glad those pieces of it have gotten corrected, but no doubt there's some things that need to be tweaked, and it's for somebody else that's not me to figure out how to fix it.
Yeah, and I've always had like I've always looked at people like, I don't know if you guys know Destroying, like how he wanted to do YouTube and he couldn't because UCF wouldn't let him play football and do YouTube because he was making money. I always thought that athletes should be able to make a name for themselves and make money off themselves based on merchandise, on stuff like that, where they want to create stuff. But to me, I felt like having like almost a salary in a way, that kind of is where it got a little bit out of control, because like obviously, again, I think if you made a big name like of yourself, like for example, like right before the whole NIL, like Kenny Pickett, coming off that season, like obviously if he wanted to make a name for himself during that year, he could have capitalized on that, but unfortunately he wasn't able to. But I think just like a salary, kind of like, the kid from Michigan they gave him basically like a contract on like set years, set amount of money. I think these are college athletes. I think that's a little crazy, but I mean, if he wanted to do something independent, that's fine. But I think it kind of got out of control there.
Yeah. I think there's a fine line between making money off of making a name for yourself. It's called name, image, likeness, right?
Right.
But then being paid like a professional athlete. Oh, come here, come play for us. You're a free agent.
Yeah.
And I think there has to be some balance there as to what's appropriate and what's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a reason why everybody's has their opinion on what they should do and everything is because there's no almost right way or correct way almost to do this, because this is really uncharted territory in college sports. Obviously, it is the first time athletes are able to make money off of their name, image, and likeness. So it will be interesting to see where it goes, but there has to be guardrails to a certain extent. I think everybody agrees, and we see like Congress is like getting involved too. So this is a very big issue because there's a lot of money involved. So we'll see where
Nick
that goes.
Saban was getting asked questions by some committee in the government.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
There was something, and I think that's why Nick Saban left Alabama. He didn't.
He's like, I just want to sit on game day and enjoy my time.
He does a great job.
Right.
He is. He's very good
He's
on game
a football-oriented guy. All this other stuff, he doesn't want to deal with that.
Right.
That's why he didn't work out in the NFL. I mean, that's what just made him such a great college football coach. Is it was all about football for him.
Yeah.
So Jason's a busy guy, so we got to end this episode here. But I want to end with this story. Some years ago, when Jason had me tour Pitt Studios, and then I got to shadow him doing a Pitt baseball game, doing play-by-play for a Pitt baseball game. Who was your color guy? He was he was a former big leaguer.
I think it was Matt Iannazzo.
Yes.
Who's great, by the way. He does an excellent job
guy.
on color. Yep.
And it just so happened that day we were playing Georgia Tech, and this clip just came back around, but it was a kind of a viral clip back then, but it's become really viral because a Georgia Tech player hit a high fly. This Georgia Tech team was good. They had like a first round, I think a high level catcher at the time who was a high end.
Was it Bart?
No, it was Kevin Parada probably.
I think you're right. I think it was Parada.
This guy is any baseball player. That's right. And then of course they had a guy by the name of Chandler Simpson. And
I wanted the Pirates to draft him so bad.
It was a high scoring. I remember it was a high scoring, fun game to watch. And of course, Chandler Simpson was on second base, less than 2 outs. There's a high fly ball to center field, and whoever was in center field for Pitt. So Sampson, right? It was like left center field, I think. And Sampson tags the third, and the center fielder didn't really get it in that quick. And it was a deep fly ball too. I think that was more part of the fact. It was really deep, and Pitt's field is pretty deep. And there goes Chandler Simpson with his speed, arguably the fastest player in baseball today, rounding third, and he heads home, and he scores on a sac fly from second to home, something you never see in any level of baseball, rarely. And Jason Earle was on the call for it. And of course, Chandler Simpson is making a headway around the league, is one of the premier base stealers, one of the better leadoff men in the game now. I feel like, he's had a very good rookie season, and when he came up and when he first came up, this clip came around. I was like, oh my, and I forgot about that this happened. I was like, oh my gosh, that was the game I was at with Jason, and it's just crazy. It all came full circle. And I know we talked about this. You were getting a lot of messages about that. Oh, this is you, Jason.
Because I think like the official MLB account posted it, and sometimes people don't always watch the streams, but everyone's on social media. So I don't often have people messaging me saying I heard you on a game, but in this case, because the MLB posted it when he got called up, I guess. They're like, Chandler Simpson is now in the bigs. Take a look at this highlight from his time at Georgia Tech.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, why are people messaging me this clip from 4 years ago? But it was because he, like you said, he is starting to crack into the big leagues and make some noise. And I had people sending me it, and they're like, is this you? It sounds like your voice. I'm like, yeah, sure enough it is. But yeah, interesting. You never know when those clips are going to pop up again. So it's live TV. Like I said, it happens once. You want to get the moment right. You never know when it's going to be clipped off and posted on the internet for everybody to see.
As a broadcaster, you can't say, "Oh, I don't like the publicity." Like any publicity is good publicity. Well, not all the time, but as a broadcaster, but you'll take the publicity, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'll take it.
And so, Jason, thank you so much for joining us. You guys didn't have anything else you wanted to ask?
Thanks,
Any-
guys.
This is great. This is great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
been a lot of
and
fun.
we got to have you back because
Absolutely.
Pitt Athletics is every year there's something new, and things are going to keep rolling year
I
after
want to
year.
mention something too.
Okay.
Have you had interactions with Alan Green yet, the athletic director?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great point.
I've had a couple interactions with Alan. The spring football game, I got to interview him down on the field. So I'm excited. I think, in this era, like we talked about for a lot of the podcast here of building revenue and NIL and all of that. I mean, this is a guy who knows how to bring money in. And that's really, really important in this era. And I think he's going to be able to do that. He's got an SEC background, which is good. So I'm excited.
Jason, thank you so much for joining us. You have to come back again. We're going to talk.
I
There's
will.
going to be a whole full year of Pitt sports.
We're gonna have a lot
You're going to be
to
rolling,
recap.
and then we'll have to recap.
It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it's gonna be a ton
it
of
is.
fun. I think.
Recap it all here on the We Are Family Pittsburgh Sports Podcast. Thank you all so much for watching. I forgot to mention this in the beginning of the episode. Our social media platforms are in our user handles for TikTok, X, Instagram are in the description, and we're gonna have a lot of clips from this episode for sure. So thank you all so much for watching. Hail to Pitt, and we'll see you all next time.
Hail to Pitt.
Hail to Pitt.